I think Elden Ring is overrated as fuck. And yet, at the same time, I think it's a masterpiece and one of those games that will have an impact on the open world genre and gaming industry. Sounds contradictory, doesn't it? Well, Elden Ring is a very unique game and a very unique case in which it manages to be both overrated and a masterpiece. The hype surrounding it has been almost the same level as the hype around a new GTA or Red Dead game. Left and right you see YouTubers, influencers or Redditors call it a masterpiece, one of the best games of this generation, a revolutionary title that will forever be remembered as the game that changed the open world genre forever. It really seems like most people just can't stop sucking Elden Ring's balls. I was not on the hype train and did my best to avoid reading too much about it before it came out. The only thing I knew was that it was very similar to Dark Souls and that its story would be interesting but extremely cryptic like almost all recent From Software stories. When I finally started playing the game, I was shocked in how amazing the world looked, how deep the lore seemed and how challenging the gameplay was. However, since I was constantly hearing what a masterpiece this game is, I was playing it with a completely different mindset than most people. I was looking at every detail, every single lore piece, every game mechanic with the thought, is this a masterpiece? Is this revolutionary? Will this change the gaming industry or at least the open world genre? I spent 200 hours in Elden Ring and I feel like now I am able to give an honest opinion, one that is not biased or coming from someone that was overhyped. I also want to make clear that I absolutely love Elden Ring. It simply is amazing and without a doubt a very special game. But at the same time, I won't be bullshitting you and act like this is the best thing since sliced bread. It does have a lot of problems that barely get mentioned or just blatantly overlooked. So let's start with the masterpiece aspect, the open world and art design. While the graphics of Elden Ring may not be on an insane next-gen level, the art direction is without a doubt one of the most amazing in video game history and especially in the fantasy genre. I spent hours and hours just walking around the world, staring at all the castles, ruins, tombs and dungeons. I am a big fan of fantasy gothic architecture and this game has plenty of it. The developers clearly spent lots of time working on the models and designing the world. Unfortunately, this game is far from the revolutionary masterpiece that so many people like to claim it is. It has problems in some of the most fundamental things like basic storytelling, combat, map design, or even ease of use when you're in the menu. The gameplay is not new, it's not outdated either, but it doesn't do anything new. Elden Ring's gameplay is pretty much the same as that of Dark Souls games and especially Dark Souls 3. In fact, the whole game is basically Dark Souls just with different names. It's literally the same except for some very minor details and the lore. But you still have bonfires, you still have undead characters like the Ashen One, only here called Tarnished. But it's the same. You have plenty of cryptic side characters that love to talk in riddles or simply make no sense just to fuck with you. The boss fights are literally the same as in Dark Souls 3, just with new enemies. Elden Ring's combat system doesn't offer anything new either. There is no deep fighting mechanic like in Ghost of Tsushima or the Dishonored games, for example. Hell, even Assassin's Creed Origins has deeper fighting mechanics than Elden Ring. You barely can even use block, as even while blocking you're losing tons of health. So all the fights, at least the boss fights, basically end with you rolling around a lot, trying to evade the blows of your enemy. And you're doing it over and over and over again. Now don't get me wrong, I have zero problem with the simplicity of this style of gameplay. If it ain't broken, don't fix it. It's simple, it's easy, and most importantly, it's fun as hell. The problem arises when people can't stop hyping the thing to oblivion, placing it among the best games ever released. They barely mention these flaws, nor do most of them address the fact that, in terms of gameplay, There's nothing revolutionary or game-changing here at all. Because this gameplay is at least 7 years old if you start counting from the release of Dark Souls 3, otherwise it's even older. While there is some gameplay variety, depending on which class of character you choose at the beginning, the differences, for the most part, are minimal. Most people won't notice any difference in gameplay between a samurai and a warrior. Now let's talk about the map and directions. What do I mean by that? Well, if you ever played a Dark Souls game, you'll know that you're Jon Snow and don't know anything. You never really know what you have to do now, or where exactly you have to go. Sure, the game might tell you to kill a certain boss or get to a certain castle or ruin, but that's it. Same thing with Elden Ring. It doesn't tell you where you have to go now, it doesn't tell you what you have to do now. It's extremely cryptic, just like the story of the game, and it hurts the overall experience. I'm not saying that the game should be hand-holding you like you're a dumb little baby. I'm not saying that it should plaster you with objectives or map icons like the Far Cry or Assassin's Creed games do. But there should be some sort of explanation of what you're supposed to do. Sure, let people be free to explore how they want, but once we get to a certain spot with a certain objective, at least tell us where to go. For example, I've discovered this huge, extremely beautiful and intriguing, a bit creepy gothic castle on a hill. The objective is to find and kill a certain character there. Sounds logical. But the closer you get to the castle, the more you'll realize how insanely huge it is. And once you're inside, it literally feels like a maze, because nothing tells you where to go. The map has 0 waypoints or markers, yet there are hundreds of ways to follow inside that castle that lead you to different parts of it and even to some very cool secrets. On one hand, this is awesome, especially if you love exploration, but on the other hand, it is extremely annoying because you're running around this castle filled with dangerous enemies all trying to kill you. You're directionless, just wandering the castle like a ghost. And while this may be awesome in the beginning, it quickly becomes annoying, especially during replays, when you just want to get shit done. But you can't, because you have no idea where to go, forcing you to either spend hours on finding the right way by yourself, or searching the internet for an answer. Searching the internet for answers. This is extremely common with Dark Souls games, and unfortunately with Elden Ring too. Did you like the story of Elden Ring? Be honest, after playing hours and hours of it, are you actually able to tell what the game was about aside from some of the cryptic cutscenes and banter? Did you know that the Elden Ring isn't even a ring? No? Well, that's a problem. Because to most gamers, the lore of the Dark Souls games and of Elden Ring is an afterthought. They are surprised when they realize how deep the lore actually is. And this is something where Elden Ring succeeds and fails at the same time, because the lore in Elden Ring is extremely deep and detailed. It's very interesting, intriguing and well written. Only you won't know or notice most of it because of how cryptic and outright bad the game presents its lore. To fully understand it, you either have to watch loads of YouTube videos or try to piece it together yourself by reading thousands of item descriptions or cryptic dialogue. The long opening cutscene barely tells you anything about the world, what's going on or why things happen. It feels like a random monologue of fantasy names and settings to sound extra Dark Souls-like. Because make no mistake, this game is 90% Dark Souls. That's a problem. Your story shouldn't be so hard to figure out that gamers are forced to search YouTube for explanation. Sure, a little bit of mystery is fine. I'm not an idiot. I don't need huge walls of text or long-ass monologues that explain every little detail. But some sort of basic storytelling should be present. People say, oh well, that's just how From Software likes to tell their stories. Well, bullshit. They marketed this game to an international audience. This isn't just some niche game anymore. Elden Ring is mainstream. Everyone was talking about it, and everyone keeps talking about it and praising it to oblivion. So it's not too much to ask to at least have an in-game compendium that explains characters and places once you find them. Just look at The Witcher 3. It had a whole lexicon dedicated to explaining the world, characters, monsters, and weapons. No one was forced to read it. It was optional. Those that wanted could have a look. Those that didn't ignored it. But it was there. The option was there and made things much easier and clearer. This is a shame, because I now know the lore of Elden Ring after watching loads of videos on the topic, and it completely changed the game for me. You can't walk 2 feet without seeing something lore related. The lore is amazing in this game, one of the best out there. But it can't shine or at least get recognized as such because it's so cryptic and hard to understand or even find out about in the first place. Elden Ring is an amazing game. Its art direction and world is beautiful as hell and very original. It's certainly one of the most unique fantasy games out there. But in terms of storytelling or ease of use, explaining to the player what they have to do or at least give the option for directions, this game fails miserably. I love Elden Ring and I enjoyed every second of it. But I won't pretend like this is a masterpiece without a question. Like this is the best game of the decade or even the most original. Because it's not. It doesn't bring anything new to the table that might change the open world experience forever. That said, and despite the fact that this is not a review, I still strongly recommend Elden Ring. Despite its flaws, it is still an amazing game with amazing set pieces and absolutely worth a buy.